Hi, Regtech is the umbrella term for a number of new digital technologies that are disrupting the regulatory environment, in particular compliance. A fascinating area, I'm sure you will agree. I'm talking to Nick Maynard, the author of our latest report in this area. Okay, Nick, first of all, what's the definition of Regtech?
So Juniper defines Regtech as regulatory technology, and that basically means any technology that will allow any heavily regulated business to meet their regulatory requirements in a more efficient, more cost-effective way. So that can cover all sorts of technologies. So here we can talk about AI, we can talk about the use of blockchain. There's a whole lot of technologies that all go into that category.
Okay, and do you get particular providers with focus on Regtech totally, or just AI and have a bit of Regtech?
So you find that you have specific regulatory compliance businesses. So there I'm thinking of somebody like MetricStream, who will produce a platform that's entirely around compliance. You will also get involvement of other people, such as IBM, who are using their Watson AI system for actions in the regulatory compliance area. So it's really a mix of vendors.
And is it really cost savings that's driving the whole thing?
Yeah, I think what the great thing about Regtech is that these costs are huge, and by introducing these technologies, they can realise savings in what they're doing. And that's not just in cost, but that's also in terms of time. I mean, if you think of a typical bank, then they can be employing thousands and thousands of staff operating these regulatory compliance positions and just dedicating all of their time to that function.
Yeah. So is the ultimate having an AI robot looking after some of these things, or is that just too distant?
That is an end goal. That's not where we're currently at. I think what we see Regtech at in the immediate future is an assistive tool that allows these compliance departments to shrink and become more efficient, and that will realise real cost savings, and that would be a huge benefit too.
Okay. Is AI the main technology then? Or?
I think yes, AI is the main technology in this area, but that's not to underestimate the importance of some other technologies. It's an unusual area in that some of the technologies that are being used in compliance are not quite as advanced as you might think. Really, one of the biggest changes that's coming into this area is cloud. And at the moment, you've got banks, for example, their operations aren't really connected. They're absolutely terrible at sharing data. So what you have is a situation where the left part of the bank doesn't know what the right part's doing. And that is a huge challenge from a regulatory standpoint. And cloud, what that can do is it can make that data available across an organisation. And that's hugely important.
This sort of makes me think blockchain would be a great solution for this kind of thing.
Yeah, and blockchain is ideally suited for implementation in Regtech. And I'll tell you why that is. That's because at the moment, a big problem in Regtech is this idea of know your customer and digital identity. And the problem at the moment with doing identity for major banks in particular is that they're doing a lot of these checks. They aren't very efficient. Banks are doing the same checks at the same time. I mean, for example, when they're doing checks for a mortgage, both parties will be checked several times. There's no sharing of data at any point, and that is a hugely inefficient process. What blockchain will allow people to do is actually share this information, so only one check will be necessary, and that will be a huge benefit, not just for the organisations that are carrying it out, but also for the user. It's a lot less frustrating, and that will be a huge benefit. A particular company that comes to mind that's doing that is a business called Tradle, and what they do is they allow a customer to use the blockchain to grant companies access to their data, so they are in control of that data, as opposed to the previous model where that data is very much controlled by the financial institution.
So the vendor landscape, is that mainly the disruptors coming in, or is it the big boys as well?
Yeah, it's a mixture. I think, like a lot of these areas where tech has been added to the end, it's not actually just now becoming an important concept. regulatory technology has existed for a while, and you do have established players in this area, but also, particularly in the financial services sector, there are these sort of exciting startups that are being founded, and they are doing something very niche, but that is hugely beneficial.
Are these the companies that are going to be bought up by the IBMs of this world?
Yeah, I think that is extremely likely, and I think we're already starting to see that in the market. Definitely some consolidation to come.
So it's really driving down compliance costs. That's the main driver of the market.
Yeah, absolutely, and not just in terms of compliance costs, existing costs for these established financial institutions. It's also the costs for newly heavily regulated businesses. And here I'm thinking of businesses like cryptocurrency exchanges, for example, and they have a responsibility to ensure that anti-money laundering obligations are being met. And they have to make sure that this is all legitimate, the activity is correct. And at the moment, these are new companies, they don't have an established track record, they are not good at doing this. Yeah. And Regtech is something that can meet this need before it becomes a problem that is requiring thousands of staff, like it does at the banks. So.
Okay, so where are we on the development path? Is it very early days, or are we halfway in?
I think we are quite advanced in the development stage already. Yeah. I think there is a digital transformation process ongoing, mainly at financial institutions. I think there's quite a way to go. I mean, to put some numbers on it, as we do forecast in this area, at the moment, in terms of Regtech spending in 2018, we're looking at 18 billion. Globally, yeah, okay. 18 billion. And that seems quite a high number. But in 2023, we're forecasting that this market will be worth 115 billion. And more importantly, at that stage, it will be worth 40% of all global compliance spending.
That's a fairly big ramp up, really, a quick ramp up.
Yeah, so we're seeing that to be quite advanced.
And what is this revenue being spent on? Is it mainly platforms or?
Yeah, I think a lot of this spending will be on platforms, and it will be on taking these regulatory activities, which are quite disconnected, connecting them, putting them on a platform where they can be seen, and introducing automation. And that really will drive down costs, and it will build in efficiencies.
Okay, just turning to the research itself, what was the main finding from that?
So I think the main finding was that regulation and compliance is not only a problem for these financial institutions, and I think where the Regtech market is at the moment, and what it's discovering, is that these technologies have applications far beyond just simple financial institutions. And you're seeing these companies.
What sort of markets then?
So any heavily regulated business can hugely benefit from this. And some of the biggest customers of these new Regtech startups are defence contractors, sort of health services, places that really struggle with this burden of compliance.
Have you forecast the market by vertical, or how have you cut the market?
So at the moment, the forecast really drills down on two verticals with detailed forecast sets, and that is on the subject of know your customer, because we think that is a hugely difficult problem.
Tell me what know your customer is.
So know your customer, and this is a concept that really comes from anti-money laundering obligations. Yeah. Basically, any bank and any financial institution that is carrying out a transaction needs to verify that transaction is not fraudulent. And what Know Your Customer checks allow these banks to do is to establish that the customer is legitimate, that there's no fraud going on, and that it is not being used for other purposes like money laundering or terrorist financing. And at the moment, these are largely paper-based, they're manual, they're time-consuming, and what is happening is these are going digital, and that's know your customer. That is a huge challenge, and that's why we've focused on that area. And we've focused on two areas where that is a particular frustration for both businesses and the customer. And those are in property sales and in bank account initiation, because we think those are two important areas.
Okay. And you forecasting the main market's going to be financial, is it? Or?
Yes, at the moment we're thinking that the main market is financial, but that, I think, will expand quite rapidly.
Okay. Well, thank you, Nick. That was very interesting indeed. Thank you. So if you would like further details of our research, our surveys and our consultancy services, then please get in touch. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.